Let me get this set up here live at thebike.com members. Make sure that it's actually working. Make sure people are out there and can comment and all that good stuff out there. Let me get this set up here live. I see us on Twitch. Okay, let's make sure I see us on YouTube. Okay, cool. Boom. All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to Out of Line at the Bike. My name is Joe Ingram, a.k.a. Chicago Joey. Today's show is sponsored by, back to being sponsored by Jack Daniels. After last week, Jack Daniels got in touch with me and said this show is exactly the kind of show that they would like to put a lot of money behind. So Jack Daniels got in touch with me, and yeah, they're going to be sponsoring the show. So big shout out to Jack Daniels. I actually have it in the other room because I've been drinking too much this weekend, and yeah, it's been a fun weekend. But yeah, joining me today on the show, guys, Out of Line at the Bike, is a young man. He's been taking the live at the bike scene by storm. He's been battling at high stakes, man. This is a guy who I play with. I had the pleasure to play with as well too. I mean, I guess it wasn't a pleasure since I would consider him a very above average player. So I probably don't want to play Potlinoma with him at my table, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, a kid I wanted to know a little bit more about. I think he's a kid, but there's a chance he might be like 30, and I don't actually know this or not because it's going to be a mystery. I'm going to find out right now with you guys. So we're joined by Dan Zack. What's up, Dan? Welcome to Out of Line at the Bike, my friend. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me, Joey. What's going?
How old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay.
So
okay.
Not quite a kid, like not the youngest kid in the room anymore, but definitely not 30 yet.
Yeah, I never know with these American guys because there's like, you know, I did on my YouTube channel, the Poker Live podcast, and I had David Peters on the podcast, and I was like, this guy could be 23 or he could be 33. Like I just don't know with some of these American guys. And then I found out he is definitely 30, so he's older. So like with the American guys, I'm just not sure. But it seems like you and Tom Brady, we had him on the show a couple weeks back. You guys are kind of the young Americans doing battle for our country against the rest of the world.
Well, yeah, AJ's a little bit. I think AJ's almost 30 now, but there's not a ton of young American players at all because of the lack of online. So no one really comes up anymore through that, and it's very hard to get into poker and get good just playing live these days.
So how have you gotten to the level that you've gotten to then without I mean, have you played some online in New Jersey, or what do you credit to your success?
I mean, I played a bunch of online New Jersey the first year or two when I was at home. I started poker really early, much earlier than almost anyone from like the online generation. I started when Moneymaker won the main event. I watched that on TV and started playing basically with 2003. Yeah, I started playing with family, organizing like games, penny poker with family reunions and with friends, playing play chips wherever I could online, just messing around in general. Got very, very into it, watched every TV show, and started basically since then playing a ton every year.
So you were 10 years old, raking the play money game with your parents and getting a lot better?
I used to try to force everyone in my family to play poker every single night for as long as anyone could possibly take it. And just any variation of poker at all was really interesting.
So you allegedly were only playing play money up until the age of 18. Is that what you're telling us? You didn't quite dabble? Because listen, I got a couple friends. Shout out to my boy George. I got a couple friends who allegedly were millionaires at 13 years old because of their online poker experience, and these guys were certainly not playing play money. So you're saying that you stuck to the play money streets until 18 years old, Dan?
Allegedly correct. Yes. That was the approach. I
believe it. I mean, listen, you know, the play money games are a little bit tougher now because they charge you for it. But back then, I know they were pretty soft. So that was probably a good way to get your teeth sharpened in there. And then, so you turned 18 about 7 years ago in 2011. So wow. Okay. So Black Friday happened, and then what? Then what'd you do after Black Friday then?
So at first, I decided to go to college. I went to Pepperdine out in LA. Which I guess I know you made fun of me for always wearing college shirts, and I have a lot of those.
Let's not made fun of is a strong statement. I was poking a little fun at you because you're wearing a goddamn Ivy League. I'm like, this guy he looks like he stepped out of Harvard to play, and he's the smartest kid in the entire world. When you wear the glasses and you have the Ivy League shirt on, I'm telling you, you look like literally. Maybe that's the look that GTO. I don't really know, but
I don't know. I'm known for giving about zero thought as to what I put on. So I wouldn't have even known what I was wearing. I just have that shirt, and so I acted on. After 18, I went to college. I was at Pepperdine for a couple years. I studied abroad in Germany for a semester and started playing out there. When it was the first time I'd played since Black Friday and had taken some time off and hadn't really planned to continue playing poker, and found that live games were pretty cool. So when I came back to the States, I used to go up to Turning Stone in upstate New York, which is a 18 plus casino, and I basically lived there for a summer and put in as many hours as I could playing 2-5, and had like a very large spin up where I brought $2,000 there and left with enough to consider dropping out of school and starting to play professionally.
That's pretty wild. And then what happened? Then you dropped out of school, or what happened from there?
Yeah, so when I got back to Pepperdine, I waited until I turned 21 and then dropped out. I was going to like Morongo on weekends, which is a hell of a drive from Pepperdine to play 1-3 no limit. But I just really enjoyed it. So I would like go after class on Fridays and go play 1-3, stay with a friend that was out at Pomona, which is in that area, and then play on the weekends and then come back and do classes during the week. But when I turned 21, I was at Commerce on my 21st birthday and just started playing full time at that point.
Wow. So you were at a Turning Stone, so you ran it up there. So you went there with 2K, and how much did you end up making in this summer?
Like low six figures. It's tough to make more than that because there was no game bigger than we sometimes would get 5-10, but mostly just 2-5. And so it's just like 14 hours a day of 2-5, basically.
Yes, yeah. I do agree with you that it is tough to make six figures in the 2-5 game over a summertime. I think that I might agree with that for sure. So you think it's not hard?
Oh, no. I was going to say I also had the benefit of I had one very big day where I had a heads-up match and ran very, very good, playing 5-10 and 10.25, where almost half of the money came from that one session, which was pretty crazy.
What the hell? So wait, you were playing a heads-up session and you won about 50,000 during that session?
Yeah, we started at 5-10, and then I'd say like a quarter of the session was 10.25, which was the largest I'd ever played at the time, but it was mostly 5-10, and definitely started at 5-10, and we never played anything bigger than that the rest of the trip.
So was your role at that time, did you have like a 50K role playing 5-10, having 50K, like making that much money in a day, or was that like 2 times your bankroll, and that, like, how did that work at that time?
I mean, I just had the 2K when I went up to Turning Stone. So I think when that heads up match started, I had 20K maybe, and I told myself I would like lose maybe 2 bullets and then quit. And then I just ran up the first bullet, and we just kept kicking up the stakes, and I just kept running very well. And he kept covering me, and so each double up just continually increased by a lot. And it's, I was still in college at the time, so it was just like the 2K random gamble shot going to the casino, and if I had lost it, it was the 2K I brought, and I would just go back to school and follow a normal path. So
what the fuck? That's awesome. Was his name Garrett Adelstein? Were you playing against G-Man? He always wanted to have you covered, or is this a secret person, or who was this person?
That's funny. I actually played Garrett heads up once after I turned 21 at Commerce very early on, and it did not go well, and he definitely did cover me. That does happen. He bought into the 10-20 game one night for like 100,000 and just started challenging everyone to heads up. I took him on, and it did not go well for me.
So wait, how does this conversation work? So he sits down at the 10-20 table at Commerce. You turn 21, so you've been playing a lot of lives. You're a seasoned guy at the casino, but obviously like 20, maybe it's a little different experience for you, a different feeling going to the Commerce. So you go sit down. He brings 100K to the table. He's calling people heads up. In your mind, what are you thinking? Like, this guy's like, is this guy drunk? Like, what's his, like, did you know him before that, or what?
Intoxicated at this time, so it seemed somewhat more reasonable to take a shot. And I was always just like taking shots early on. Pretty much whenever these situations came up, I used to just fire them 100% of the time. So it seemed like a fun idea. It ended up not being very fun. We played 100-200, which was at the time I think the biggest game I'd ever played, and I lost a buy-in and quit. So he got me, which was unfortunate. He played every hand when he came in also for about an hour at 10-20, so he really convinced me that it was a good idea.
That is called GTO advertising right there. That is a man that has studied his advertising strategy and knows what to do. So did you buy in for 20K to that match, or did you buy in for a couple more 100 big blinds, or what were you bought in for?
No, I just bought in for 20,000. It was a very big game for me at the time, and Garrett couldn't have cared less. So it was a tough hit for me. I'm not even sure. I think Garrett still remembers it. We mentioned it recently, but it was a number of years ago. So I guess it was 4 years ago, and it was just a one-time thing.
So you haven't played him heads up again since. I'm sure he's made the challenge. He's put the challenge out there. You have decided you don't want to avenge that defeat that you took a couple years back.
I don't know. We have never discussed a rematch, but that would be fun sometime. We'll have to talk about it now. I hadn't thought about it in quite a long time because I haven't played No Limit until these Live at the Bike shows in a few years. So.
So what have you mainly been playing? Have you mainly been playing the Great Game of Pot Limit since then, or what have you been playing? Mixed games?
A little bit of PLO. A lot of PLO when I was playing online in New Jersey. Was the main game for me. But I mostly play mixed games playing live, or at least did for the last couple of years until the last 6 months, I'd say.
So were you playing the live game Sarah Bellagio, or were we playing mixed at?
Mostly Borgata and Los Angeles.
Okay.
So Commerce Casino frequently has mixed games, both off-season and especially during LAPC. And then Borgata has games up until recently. They had them year-round. It's been kind of quiet while I've been home, so I don't really know what's happening here. But I haven't been home since January until now for Easter, and it's now all quiet here. So not planning to stay too much longer.
They're not telling you about the games, are they? Yeah, we got no games, Dan. We got no action here, kid. The game's done.
No, they like me here. They all think I'm the worst. They're probably right. So.
Oh. Well.
One of the guys here started calling me. One of the Vietnamese guys still uses the word donkey for bad poker player, and started calling me Donkey Dan out here. Awesome. Stuck very, very strongly.
Wow. Dude, I mean, I don't know if you're winning, or I assume you're probably winning in the games. I mean, maybe this guy, I don't. We're gonna go with that, Donkey Dan. I think anytime if you're a good player and someone's calling you a donkey, it's probably one. There's probably a big reason why, and maybe you should figure out why. And then two, it's if you're winning, it's definitely a good thing because you probably want them to think you're a losing player in the game. So.
Well, I was fine with it either way. So yeah. It's a fun name, and it's definitely the one that I always hear out here. Never hear it in LA. So.
So how can we get you called Donkey Dan? I mean, I don't think wearing Ivy League shirts is going to help. I don't know. How can we do it? Do you think we could do it? Do you think we could start a movement to get you called Donkey Dan out there?
I have no idea. You'd have to start putting it up on the graphics, I guess. Maybe it would just stick. You can't really introduce yourself as that. Or yeah. I could just start going all in dark. That would work too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think if you just channeled your Randall Emmett one week on the show and just decided to play like Randall and just blind raise, blind do a bunch of stuff like that. Yeah, I think they might start calling you Donkey Dan, but I don't know the chat. Listen, guys, when Dan plays from now on, start calling him Donkey Dan no matter what happens. And I don't know. I'm going to do my best, Dan, to get the name out there, okay?
All right, that works for me.
I remember I think there's one time I actually saw you this summer when I was going to talk with Leon, and then he was playing you heads up, and I don't know what you guys were playing, and then the other other players on the rail were like, what's going on in there? Like, you know, like, why is he playing that Dan heads up? I was like, I'm not sure why Dan I don't know how he's got him heads up. I don't know what's going on. So do you remember this these heads up match against Luce Leon?
Yeah, we played 500, 1,000 heads up PLO freeze out. So it was a 100K freeze out for 500, 1,000. But then Sam Sovereign joined, so it ended up being three-handed. But it originally started as a heads up match. He had just been going around, I think, asking people to play heads up, sort of advertising that he was open for business in the Rio, and so I just sounded like fun, so I thought I would play.
Luce Leon heads up. I think that could be a fun match. I think so. Leon, I know a little bit about Leon, and I know Leon is not a big fan of folding pre-flop at No Limit Hold'em. And then when you put the Great Game of Pot Limit into the game, he is not a fan of folding. And yeah, it's probably a high variance match. But I guess it is freeze out, so obviously, you know, it could go either way. And the advantage is probably in if you could rebuy. But how'd the match go? Did you end up? Did you guys win? Did it end, or what happened?
I felted my bullet and then just left. So I don't know how it finished between the other two, but I did not feel like rebuying. I had two more bullets with me, but took a beat and then just didn't feel very good. And you want to feel 100% on your A game if you're going to play a game that big. So thought I made a good decision to just go home.
That's one.
Yeah. Never got an offer again to play. So it's fine.
It's one of those discipline things I've heard of from you've got to be a new school poker player, because the old school poker players I know, and by old school I mean like my age, would never leave. They're like, I got 2 bullets, I'm firing these 2 bullets. Like, I'm playing 3-handed with Loose Leon and Sam. I'm gonna fire these other bullets I have. So that's a lot of discipline to kind of tap out there and say, all right, I'm not feeling my best. Like, I'm just not in that place I know I can get to. So I'm going to take a break here and I'm not going to play again. Especially when you don't know if you'll be able to play those 6 again in that sort of same lineup.
Yeah, I used to fire that spot 100% of the time, either 4 years, like when I was 21 or even before then. But like, I just don't. I've just done that so many times, and you just sort of learn through experience that it just doesn't really work out very well. Mm-hmm. When you know that you shouldn't continue playing and you continue playing, just so much more often than not, it goes poorly. Right. So you try to, I mean, whatever. Poker is sort of like a battle against yourself as much as it's a battle against everyone else. So learning to quit when you don't feel like playing is just such a huge part of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that poker, like people always ask me about, I think poker is a competition against myself like 95% of the time. So if I think in my mind, if I put enough work, put enough time, and if I execute my strategy and I stay focused, I know I'm probably gonna win more often than I'm gonna lose if I put in a bunch of hours. Like, it's just gonna happen. It's always happened. But then when I start getting in my own head and I'm tilting, I'm doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that, that's when my results start suffering. And that's sort of what I've always looked at from the poker perspective. They talk about, do you like competition? I say, I think it's more of a competition against me. Like, I'm trying to beat my own fucking head here, really. So, and I mean, yeah, I kind of look at it the same way. I don't really hear a lot of other people say that, though, is that they don't really talk about the competition against yourself in a lot of ways, because you're sort of trying to navigate all these thoughts and all these things in your mind. And yeah, if for example, if you stay and play in that game and you end up losing those 2 more bullets, I mean, if you have a big piece of yourself in that might set you back there. And now you got to go grind for the next month potentially, or even more, and and on your mind, it's like, fuck, it was so dumb. Like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And then for the rest of the summer, you're sort of like in this misery mode, like, oh, what the fuck, and then it just stays with you for a while. And it's like, is that worth it, the times that you make some money in that game? Is it worth it the times that you lose a bunch, to go through that feeling and to have that sort of thing last with you?
Yeah, and I'm not claiming that I'm perfect with that. And I've been in that spot so many times where you just are sitting in the bed the next day and you're just like, what the fuck did I just do? Like, why did I, put myself in that spot? And so, like, the more times you put yourself in that spot, hopefully the less often it will happen in the future, and the better you get at identifying like those warning signs and, stopping the train as soon as it can, as it's like, barreling off the tracks. Like, you just have to stop it at some point and just get a hold of yourself. So I think everyone has varying degrees of struggle with these kind of discipline issues, and hopefully you just get better as time goes on.
So what do you think the warning signs are for you that you're getting to that point?
It's mostly like you'll play a hand and you'll do something that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Like, you open a hand that you're not supposed to open, or you bluff a hand that you're not supposed to bluff, or you're sitting thinking a hand and you're like, well, it's sort of close, let's just gamble, and like stop trying to think about like what you're supposed to do. Like, all of that stuff is just, it happens frequently to lesser and greater extents, and you need to be very honest with yourself about, am I capable of still playing well enough to be worth my time being here? And, am I suddenly just like torching money? Because sometimes you become you just start lighting your own money on fire.
Yeah. And
to identify that and get out. So.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big indicator. I would agree with that, especially when you start bluffing. You're like, I made this bad play pre-flop. Nah, I'm gonna bluff the turn and bluff the river here, and you're like, oh, fuck. It's like, even when it works out, you're just like, it's probably a bad thing for it to even work out sometimes too. So yeah,
100%. And it's much worse playing big bet than limit, because it can happen so fast if you lose control. So you start doing stupid stuff in big bet, you get punished so quickly, and there's no, it's so hard to come back from that.
Yeah, I mean, especially if in live, you're very deep stacked compared to playing online poker. So if you're deep stacked 500 big blinds deep or something like that, and it's very rare. It seems like you get in 500 big blinds, but like, God forbid you get in 500 big blinds in some situation, and you made you compounded a mistake pre-flop with a mistake on the flop, turn, and river. I mean, that's like, I feel like that's something that sticks with you for. I mean, that could stick with someone for months. I mean, honestly, months. Just like that decision, that spot, and that moment can shake your confidence and sort of fuck you up as a poker player for a pretty big amount of time. It's pretty wild how that can even happen too.
100%. And so that's why just watching yourself is so important. But yeah, I mean, that's just sort of being a professional poker player, is just doing your best to work through all of those situations.
Yeah.
And navigate in your own journey the best way that you can.
So right now with yourself, so you mentioned these past 6 months you're playing the 2-card game, playing on Live with the Bike, obviously too. Where does your poker focus sort of lie right now? Why are you getting back into No Limit Hold'em then?
I wouldn't say I'm getting back into No Limit Hold'em. I'm always looking typically for big games, and like for the longest period of time there haven't been significant, like all the significant action has been in mix and not in No Limit, or at least in PLO and mix instead of No Limit. But there were some big games running this LAPC in No Limit, and then there was the Live at the Bike games running as well, and so it seemed like a fun time to re-up some No Limit knowledge and give it a spin. So there were relatively frequent 100, 200, or 200, 400 games running at LAPC this year. And then there's been the Live at the Bike games that have been anywhere from 50, 100 to... We've played 200, 400 basically on stream or after stream a few times on the show as well. So just like it's been much more significant than any time that I can remember since turning 21 playing live.
Yeah, I wonder if Live at the Bike's actually a big reason for that, because obviously when there's high stakes games in town, for some reason, when people play in that high stakes game, well, now they might want to play that more, and then it sort of builds an ecosystem around that from that one game. I feel like I've seen that happen on other poker sites where there might not be much high stakes action, but then if a 100, 200 game starts going, well, then there'll be more 5100, more 2550, more people willing to gamble and want to play that high. So I wonder if Live at the Bike is a big reason why the high stakes No Limit actions sort of picked up in town.
Well, people get comfortable playing a stake as well. So like the first time it runs, like maybe no one really wants to play again. But if you play, there's a reason a game runs like a number of times over the course of a month or two, then everyone suddenly that's the new normal. And once it's the new normal, then it just becomes what people are expecting when they come in and are ready to play. Instead of not being ready to play, maybe they don't have the funds available or whatever. Now people send the wires in or have the money in. So it's just a different... the circumstances of what's normal have such an impact on what runs.
Yeah, it does seem like some of the guys that have been playing Live at the Bike, they are used to playing these stakes from in the home games, because I know in home games out there they still play the 2-card game, and I feel like the 2-card game might even be more popular than PLO out there, which I don't really hear that in most places. It seems like most private games around the country are PLO or 5-card now, or some sort of like mixture of it. But it does seem like LA has a lot of the No Limit Hold'em private games, though. You haven't played?
I have not played in a private game in years, and just generally am not up to date with what's going on with them. I know of PLO games. I don't know of like straight No Limit games, but I'm sure they're out there. I just don't. I haven't participated in any period or any function, so it's just not something I can speak to, I guess.
I've seen the players in these games, these private No Limit Hold'em games, and I don't know what else is happening in these games or how much they're raking, but some crazy action going on in those games, man. What do you think about the overall Live at the Bike and kind of just been your experience so far playing on the stream and kind of playing, getting people to see your cards and that sort of thing?
Well, that's, I guess, a couple things. It helps, first of all, to not be like a regular No Limit player, because I don't go and like grind No Limit every day. And so it's not, I'm not as worried as maybe some of the guys who do are about giving up information with sharing their cards. It's been really fun to be on the show, watch the show grow for the last year. So the first time I played was about a year ago on the show, and I went on only because my family had asked for like some way of watching what I do, because I only play cash games, not really tournaments ever. And so there was an occasional live stream that I would play on in the World Series when I would make a final table during the summer. But outside of that, there's no way for them to see or to show their friends or whatnot. So I went on a couple shows like a year ago, and then it's just grown a ton since then. Like the stakes have gone up, the production value has gone up, the way they handle the player, everything about it. They got the new room. It's been really, really cool. So it's been fun to watch like them grow from sort of casual, everyday, like mid to low stakes games to having like this whole environment of the high stakes Fridays and then like instructional smaller games during the week and good commentary. I've done some commentary on the show and had a lot of fun meeting the guys behind it. It's been cool. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, man. I think it's fucking crushing, dude. I mean, you look at some of these numbers they're getting now for the show, and the thing is, so here's what I think is fucking like the coolest thing, and here's why I kind of wanted to get involved in the first place, and why I still, like working with Live at the Bike too, is because you're building up now you're sort of getting people to really know some of these high stakes guys because you're playing on there a lot. Obviously, Garrett's in the mix a lot. We got my man the Wolf out there a lot. We obviously have Art now. Art's the kind of a newer guy to the mix there, and then we have these other guys that sort of that hop in but are becoming characters, and it's sort of becoming now when you watch like you've seen how this guy's done 10 times, 15 times. I've seen Garrett lose $150,000. I've seen Garrett win $700 million on this. Like you're getting to really get a feel for these guys together too. And I think if you kind of look at what made poker, some of these shows great back in the day, is the guys all knew each other. So they knew each other. They played a lot with each other. There was this camaraderie. They had the rivalries. They battled. Some guys were crazy. Some guys were nits. And I feel like with how Live at the Bike's going now, they've been able to build that at some of the lower stakes. And now they're starting to build that for higher stakes games that runs every week, where that doesn't happen anywhere else in poker right now. So it's a very exclusive thing to Live at the Bike, and the action's been great. I mean, I don't really watch much Nolan Hold'em, but I've been watching a lot more on Fridays too, just because I do know a lot of the guys now, so it does make me more interested to watch. But overall, I think it's just been a really good production and a lot of action and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like those high stakes poker episodes back in the day were my favorite thing to watch. I don't think I've missed an episode. Or not even missed an episode. I don't think there's an episode I haven't seen 10 times. And that is part of what was so fun about it, is you got used to seeing the same people each time. It's not necessarily the people themselves. It's just the familiarity with how they play, what their dynamic is with the other people at the table, and then combine that with there being large amounts of money at stake in the games. It makes for like a really fun sweat. And I think that No Limit, I love PLO and playing PLO, but I think No Limit does a better job in this exact context in terms of like TV poker, of getting like tension and building like dynamics, because No Limit is such a more tense game, which might not make it the most fun to play live, and it's more fun to be at a PLO table, but it might be more fun to watch and like engage as a viewer when there's just more pressure on the players. There's not as many easy spots where you're like, all right, well, this is just a get-in gamble. That just doesn't really exist in No Limit the same way that it does in PLO. So, I think it's really, really cool, and I've really had fun participating with it the last few months.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to agree with you on this. After watching some of the PLO shows, and yeah, it is kind of a lot of the spots do play themselves. And even if you have a couple guys that are deep stacked in the table, you're going to have a bunch of other guys with like sub 100 big blinds, and they're going to be a straddle on, and then some guys are going to be like 50 effective and stuff like that. And I don't think short stack under 100 big blind pot limit Omaha is very interesting at all. I think that as you get deeper, that's when the game becomes more interesting. And when you do have a ring pot limit Omaha game, you don't really want to get too out of line anyway with a lot of your play. So the right way to play a lot of times is to play pretty solid for the most part too. So I think when you factor that in with some of the live PLO we've seen on television, or like I guess streams with Poker After Dark with Live at the Bike, yeah, it hasn't been quite that right mixture of players. I did think the Gus Hansen week they had on Poker After Dark was a little bit more fun of a mixture, because you had Gus Hansen and he was gambling up a little bit, and then you had regulars kind of playing around. Like Matt Kirk was in there too, and he was kind of gambling. So it makes for that unique dynamic. But I do think overall, Nolan Hold'em is probably, it's probably a little better for the player to watch, for the person at home to watch. Yeah,
I think it's a better TV game for the viewer, even though it's not necessarily a more fun game to play as a player. So I used to really want more PLO content on videos until I started watching some, and I feel like I've come to the conclusion that as a viewer, it's more fun to watch No Limit Hold'em. Yeah. I
think it's good to kind of have it in there to mix it up once in a while. And like I said, when you hit with the right lineup, I feel like that's something special. But if you have a bad lineup, I mean, it's I don't think it could be that fun. I don't know, man. I've been having a lot of fun watching No Limit Hold'em lately. It's a little weird. I was playing something called Poker Snowy. I don't know what this thing is. You ever seen this thing, Dan? You ever played this Poker Snowy? You heard of this thing?
a long time ago when it first came out.
Yeah.
I haven't used it in a number of years, but yes, I know what it is.
It's basically like you just get to play. You get to play Hold'em against some bot and then tell you what to do sometimes, and you can analyze your play and cost no money. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just playing for hours. I'm like, I don't know. It's fun. You get to overbet. It's been kind of fun, man. I feel like my love for Nolan Hold'em, because I used to love 2-card game, and then I found Potman Omaha, the drug. And what do you personally like better? So you've played everything now. You got mixed games, you got Potman Omaha, you got Nolan Hold'em. So just from a playing perspective, if you had your choice of what you want to play, what's the game that you'd play?
If I had to pick of like known games, I think like in a vacuum, I prefer playing draw games. But
Ooh.
And that draw games meaning, I don't know if you know any draw games, but that's like deuce to 7 triple draw, deuce to 7 single draw, Badoogie, Badusi, Badacy, ace to 5 triple draw, ace to 5 single draw. However, I also just really like new games, so we're constantly adding new games to the mix, and anything that's like fresh that I haven't played before, that no one's played before, it feels like much more of a poker battle where everyone has to figure out stuff on the fly, and I'm a big fan of that, as opposed to games that everyone's played for years and has honed a strategy and is just sort of autopiloting their strategy that they've worked on. So I find it much more engaging to play when we come up with new games, to play those games. A lot more fun.
Yeah, I've heard that from some other guys who are also regulars in the limit games, and I've heard this from some people who it's cost them a lot of money. I say, you're great at Potman Omaha, why don't you stick to Potman Omaha? They go, I kind of like the limit games. I like figuring the games out, and then they get crushed and go broke, which I'm thinking of one certain person, unfortunately. But yeah, I got to play some single draw, no limit, I think it was no limit single draw. You get 5 cards, right? So you draw to that's like the 2. The 2's the lowest card, right?
Correct. That's a great game. I actually think that would be a good poker like television game as well. That's another they have it or they don't type of game with big overbets.
I could definitely see that. So my first time, we played, we had like we do these private games once in a while. We all get together. It was like me, Doug, and Frank Casella's there. Frank Casella, he's got a couple of bracelets, I believe, in the limit events. So he's like, let's play this game. I'm like, all right. I don't know how to play it. Obviously, you're an expert at this, of course. So, but fine, I'll play it. And then they're like explaining it to me. I'm like, okay, so blockers. So if 9 blockers are good, you can do that. I'm like, man, this game's kind of fun. I don't know. Like, I would love to play that game. Or I would enjoy watching that game too. I wonder if we can get Feldman to maybe throw that game in one time, and then kind of. I mean, I don't know if the stakes could be that big. I don't think they could, but it could be something fun to check out and kind of see exactly.
Right. There are people who might be interested in doing it. It just would be different people than currently play the show. So like someone who's often in town is a legend of poker, which is Billy Baxter, and that's like Billy Baxter's game. So he's been playing that since the 1970s. Is like got a ton of bracelets in it. It's been his like main game in cash games. He loves that game. Still plays it in LA. So like that's, there are people out there that love and play this game. It's just there's not a ton of overlap with no limit hold'em players, because most of them, if they switched, didn't switch back. But it's a great like put your opponent to the test type game, because it's so hard to have a super strong hand, and you just get to make these huge bets that are polarizing to like, are they bluffing or do they have it? And then you just get people to stare at you for a couple minutes trying to figure out, like, what the hell do I do? Because there's so many bluff catchers. Once someone bets big, every hand becomes like the same. It's like, do they have it or do they not? And so it's a cool like poker game, like a real test game. And I think it would make good television as well.
I couldn't imagine playing that game heads up. Heads up, that's just got to be crazy. Like, it seemed like it might be more fun in a ring setting. Heads up, that just seems insane. Like, it would just be.
I think either way it's fun as long as you're deep. And this is sort of the same thing with all of these games, right? Like, as long as you get rid of the short stack play and you get to like the really cool like manipulative stuff that you can do, the deeper you are, it gets really interesting with the kinds of plays that people make, both as ways of trapping with value and as bluffing, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good way for the new players trying the games to go broke, though, is if you're playing some of these newer draw games super deep and you don't know what you're doing. You're like, he bet 7x pot. I have a 10 low. I'm gonna call, and he's like, nuts. And you're like, oh fuck, okay. Like, it seemed like it'd be an expensive lesson for a lot of new players out there if they bought in super deep, though, which is kind of like, yeah, I guess that might make it a little bit more unfortunate of of a game for potentially new players to try out and learn?
It's tough to learn. There aren't a lot of small stakes mixed games, which I think is like the big barrier of entry for a lot of people. I wish there were more 20, 40 limit mixed games, because I think people, if they could, would really enjoy the games and would start trying to move up in stakes and mix. But instead, if you want to start playing mix, pretty much the smallest stakes you usually have to play is either 40, 80, or even more likely 80, 160 or 100, 200. And so, you can lose a quick, I don't know, a lot of money quickly at those stakes. And it's not a joke kind of amount of money where you're just paying to learn and hopefully get good enough to beat the games, which is a tough spot for most people to put themselves in. But I think that if there were smaller mixed games, people from big bet backgrounds would really find that it's enjoyable to play something different than what you've just spent your whole life grinding away at. I feel like I started playing mixed games at one point and then just suddenly couldn't care less about playing the other games for years. It was just so much more fun to like suddenly have so many new things to think about instead of just autopiloting through all the decisions.
Were you winning pretty quickly into this? Because I feel like if you're winning, it helps you. Oh, I enjoy this. Like when you're losing, you're like, I'm going back to what I win at. I think that's what happens to a lot of people that I've seen is like, all right, they're like, okay, maybe I'll try PLO or I'll try some of these games. And then they start losing and they're like, well, I'm just winning at this game. They don't want to necessarily deal with that variance in their life and sort of put in that effort and put in that work to maybe win when they're already winning at this game for years. So I feel like that's been a big hurdle with people changing games at any point in time.
Yeah. It helps to have someone to talk to that's like already good to teach you. And then again, like the lower the stakes, the better in terms of learning and not getting punished too fast. I would say that I was doing pretty well quickly, but I started much earlier than now. And so like 4 years ago, it was not infrequent to be playing high stakes and have someone sit down at the table and ask what the rules were and then pull 100,000 out and just start playing. And that just doesn't really happen anymore. So it's like I don't know exactly what it would be like trying to enter at 100, 200 or higher now, as opposed to 5 years ago. We would frequently have people just sit down and learn the games in real time at 400, 800, which is, a pretty high stake to just learn at. And that doesn't seem to happen anymore, which is unfortunate.
Have you got a chance to play the big bet mixed game in Bobby's room ever?
I've played it twice, I think. Yeah, 2 times. So that's the 100K like 20. It used to be less games, and they added a lot more last summer, which was frustrating. But yeah, that's a really crazy game.
Yeah, I think I just had the Gus Hansen podcast coming out tomorrow. He was just playing the big bet mixed game in Bobby's room for like 2 weeks straight. He said, this summer I'm gonna be there all summer. I said, okay, we'll see what happens. So it should be yeah, man, during summer it seems like Texas Dolly, Doyle Brunson's there, man, Jungleman's there, Gordo's out there every day. A lot of these like old school guys that you don't really see much anymore, just grinding Bobby's room every day. And man, it's crazy to see that there's that high stakes of action on such a consistent basis, because they play what do they play, like 3K, 6K or something like that? What's the
the regular game usually is 1,500, 3,000.
Okay.
I think 2 summers ago they played 3K, 6K with one specific player, but it's generally either 1,500, 3K, or occasionally like towards the end of the summer it will become 2K, 4K. But mostly 15-3 is like the standard game there year round. Either 1,000, 2,000, or 15-3 year round, as well as during the World Series. So
if you're out there for summertime and you're deciding what are you deciding how to play? Because obviously there's a lot of different games, and if you're great at pot limit, you're great at Nolman Hold'em. If you're great at mixed games, you got all the options in the world, and there's high stakes games that'll break out at the Win or break out at Aria, break out at Rio. So how do you sort of manage, like, what are you going to play there? How do you figure that out?
I've been terrible about game selection during the World Series. I just like lose my head for those two months or month and a half for the last couple of years, which is dumb, but it's just like, it's almost overstimulation. There's just so many things happening at once that I feel like I lose like my discipline in some respects, because it's just chaos. And I'm hoping to get better at this, just like we talked about with all the other things. That is one place I've struggled to make good disciplined decisions, has been like game selection during the World Series, or like managing my time during the World Series. So I remember I went deep in the main 2 years ago, and I played an overnight session the day before day one of the main, played the main, bagged, continued playing until the start of day two, played all of day two and bagged, and then slept. So I think I'd been up for like 50 something hours at the end of day two bagging, and then had like 7 hours to sleep and couldn't even sleep that well. And then woke up to play like day three of the main, and then barely slept that night, and then played day four of the main. And I like couldn't keep my eyes open by the end of that tournament. So just like a lot of dumb time management decisions and in games. Like, I'm sure I wasn't playing great by like hour 50 in the games, the cash games that night after, day one as well. So yeah, I don't have the answers for you.
I wish I could not relate to that very well. Again, so I asked the question. I feel like, I can understand. I definitely can see that you would be a type of person that, a lot going on out there, especially with these random games break out sometimes, and then you end up playing for hours. You're playing until 9 a.m. and you try to sleep, and you can't. It's I guess, do you have a better game plan? If you feel like if you learned something in the past that maybe this summer you're gonna try to stick to, or is it just like go there and sort of?
Yeah, the game plan is to stick to more or less what I try to do everywhere else. I just always somehow justify staying up too late the first time, and then it just snowball. Like, I'm sure most poker players out there have experienced similar things, and hopefully as you get older you get better, and I feel like over time I have gotten better at this. But that snowballing effect of, oh, this game's too good to quit, even though in actuality it's just as good as the game that's going to run tomorrow is, and all of a sudden you're pulling 24-hour sessions and your sleep cycle is switching by 6 to 12 hours every night, and you're waking up at, I'm sure there's been every year since I've dropped out of school, I'm sure I've woken up at every half-hour interval over the course of 365 days. So like, I've woken up at 1:30 in the morning, I've woken up at 2 in the morning, I've woken up at 2:30 in the morning, I've woken up like every single possible half-hour interval of the day. I feel like I've woken up at some point during the last couple of years, and that's a result of just getting caught up in all these games when they run. And that's, you just hope to get more and more disciplined about keeping yourself out of that as time goes on.
Do you think that having this approach has actually been a big reason why you've had success, though?
No, I feel like usually most of the times where you do stuff like that, especially like occasionally, sure, it's justified, but I think more often than not, you convince yourself that something is must play, can't leave, when it really isn't that high on the curve of games. And there's going to be something similar tomorrow, and instead you just put in shitty hours, or you're exhausted and your opponents are constantly refreshing themselves with sleep, and you're just being hyper inefficient and even putting yourself in bad spots sometimes. So I don't think that that's a big part of the success. I think that hinders, or has hindered, success in the past more than anything.
Yeah, I kind of think that if you have a mindset where you're sort of like willing to always put the hours in, you're going to put in a 50-hour session. I feel like there's something you gain from that, just in a certain mentality of like, you're just never going to give up. You're going to always try to figure out a way to make whatever situation that you're in work. And sometimes oftentimes it's not going to take 24 hours, or it's not going to take this amount of time for us to sort of fix a situation, or to I guess maximize a situation when we see it, even though we have to put in 12 hours or 13 hours. So I do think there are negative moments that come from it when you play too long, or on day 4 of the main event, you're fucking up your sleep schedule. You can't stay awake. I think that, you have that happen sometimes. But I do think overall that's a special skill and ability that you can build up by doing that. And then I guess the trick is to be able to move on from that standpoint, which that's the hard part. I don't know. It's kind of hard to sort of live your life like that for many years, being super flexible, going to sleep whenever, able to function whenever, able to have success any time of the day, no matter what schedule you're on, and then sort of 1 year be like, all right, I'm going to stop doing that, because I feel, to me, it seems incredibly challenging to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's a tough habit to break once you start down that road. And I think that road, like all of your terrible blow-up sessions usually come through that happening. And so even though maybe oftentimes you are in a good enough state to keep putting in hours and put in a good session through those 50 hours, if once every 50 times you do that, you're going to play the worst poker of your life for 20 hours at a high stake, then it's not worth it for all those other sessions where you got in a few extra hours in a slightly better than average game. So I think it's a whatever. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes through time, and I think everyone, again, on their poker journey tries to do this.
They try. They definitely try. We got a lot of regulars in the chat, guys. We got Eldar out there. What up, Eldar? What's up, Big Poppy, man? Israeli Ron, Mr. Queen Deuce himself. Big shout out. What'd you say?
Those guys are both awesome. Love both those guys.
Yeah, man. I saw Surf out here too. My guy Surf. What up? What up, Mr. Gunman? What up, guy? I think Surf tried to post a gun. He posted a gun photo the other day. I think he was trying to play it like it was a video game, but it was actually his gun. It was a gun. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's illegal, Surf. Never mind. I take that back if that was the case. But we got What Bree in the chat. What up, brother? What's happening? Blueberry Nugs. How come Joey doesn't play at the bike anymore? I have not been out to the bike since December, but the next time I go, I will play on the show for sure. And yeah, I will go back to the show. But I was gonna play on the Hollywood home game with Randall, but I just decided I didn't want to play Hand Holdem. So probably a good game. Probably a good. What do you say?
It's not the great game.
Yeah, really isn't, man. Really isn't. Who else we got out there, man? Stevio Canivo. He says, "What did you cash in the main, Zach?" Yeah, what did you cash in there?
I got 88th, I believe.
That's pretty good.
It was very exciting. I usually hate tournaments, and I really only play them during the World Series. But that was one of the few times that I was really into the tournament, not on my phone or not bored out of my mind. I was excited to be there.
It turns out, guys, if you go deep in the main event, you're gonna be focused. It might help. Maybe that'd be a good thing, huh?
Yeah, it didn't help to be exhausted, but I still was more into it than pretty much any other tournament I've ever gotten to. And I effectively final tabled 5 diamond, and the main event in the hundreds was more exciting than that. So just a different feeling.
Yeah, man. I mean, the main event, it's like, it's a main event. I don't know, man. Whatever they did, they made this so prestigious and legendary. Just the aura around it. It's been going on since like the 50s or 60s, and there's really nothing like the main event. No tournament is going to be like the main. I mean, actually, super high rollable I think it has potential in the future, but the main event is the main event. People from all over the world come to play the main event. Yeah, I don't know. It's just special. I've never played the main event technically, but I heard it's special to play.
Oh, you've got to try it sometime. I mean, for me especially, because I grew up interested in poker but not able to play poker, so I've just watching all the televised poker. The main event was such an exciting event. I used to follow it in the text updates while it was happening when I was a kid, and fill out the fantasy teams on the random fantasy websites and stuff. So it's really cool to be able to play it each year. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't play now that you mention it. I don't ever know why. I think what happened the past couple of years is I'll be playing at the ARIA PLO, like the 5, 10, 20 or something, and then I might be down or up, and I'm like, well, I probably need to go to bed if I'm going to play the main event. I'm like, fuck that. I'm just going to keep playing. So that's happened pretty much every year, except this year I did miss registration, unfortunately. Shout out to me. It was unlucky, Dan. Listen, I showed up, but thought it was unlucky. So I'm going to play the main event this year, I think, guys, and if I do, I'll probably do a giveaway again. Don't worry, just like last year. And we'll see if it happens. See if we miss it.
You can't give away a percentage of nothing. You have to enter.
Tough to do that. I know. That's what's great about it, Dan. I agree. I know. I completely agree with you. You're right. When I play, I'm going to give away something for sure. I didn't troll the main event, guys. For fuck's, it was a serious thing. My God, it was a very serious thing out here. I saw my buddy Dr. Space earlier. He said, I hope this is still here. Oh, big shout out Poker Traveler too. At the Poker Traveler, I just met up with him the other night at Venetian for a little bit. Big shout out to him. Yeah, my young friend Dr. Space, my young scientist friend, he said it's a real pleasure seeing Dan play, how he adjusts to the game dynamic within an optimal framework.
Yeah, thank you.
Shout out Dr. Space. Let's see if we can take a call. Actually, I'm not sure how to put the call into this conversation with us while we're on here. So let me I actually need to figure that out for the future here, but let me see if we can do this here, guys, and let's figure out a way to make this work here. I think it's about adding I felt like I knew how to do it, but Yeah, I can add people to the call, but I can't add a phone call to it, though. It has to be someone who's actually on Skype. So it's a little bit weird. So we'll get that fixed in the future here, guys. And but yeah, for this week, we're not going to be able to do it, unfortunately. So kind of is what it is. So we'll take some questions here from the chat. And yeah. How do we make this work here? Oh, whatever. You guys can see me, too. It is what it is. Got to figure that out. Are you reading the chat too?
No, I don't. I only see the Skype screen.
Oh, okay. All right, let's find some questions here. Eldar says, Joe, ask Dan a question for me. With his great mind, why is he wasting it on poker? He should be solving cancer or some shit like that.
Ha. I don't know. I get either rhetorically or sarcastically asked this question, but my answer is always that I like playing poker and enjoy playing poker more than other activities. Like, I liked it a lot more than school. I liked it a lot more than all the traditional paths that I considered going into. And so, honestly, like, do what makes you happy was always stressed in my household growing up. And so I did what made me happiest. I really enjoy playing strategy games, and it's most of what I do when I'm not actually working as well. Like, I go to game board cafes a lot when I'm in Vegas or in Los Angeles, try to find friends to play games with my friends that are not poker friends, try to play games against my poker friends, like, away from the table as well. Just like any sort of competitive game is really what I enjoy the most. So that's how I choose to spend my time, I guess.
What other board games do you play?
A lot. Recently, or in the last couple of years, we played a ton of a game called Splendor, which is a resource management game. Settlers of Catan, which is another resource management game that I feel like more people will know than Splendor. Some chess-based games. I used to play chess competitively, not like super well because I started very late, but I did travel for tournaments. And then there's a game called Hive, which is similar, and a card game called Dominion, which is very popular at board game cafes that we've played a lot recently. But, I mean, another 50 could be named as to what we've experimented or tried with in the last couple of years. I really, again, that's why I play poker as well. I just really enjoy playing games. So.
Yeah, you've been to the board. There's a board game cafe here. I've been to a couple times. It's like I don't know. It's pretty sick. They literally have every game. I think they might have every game that ever existed in board games. But
yeah, Eapleville, right? It's
I don't know that name. It's on Sahara, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one I've been to. Yeah.
Yeah, I go like anytime I take time off in Vegas from the grind. I go there generally. I really like that place.
Yeah, I think that place is pretty fun. It's always like a bunch of guys playing different games. The guys working there very helpful. They'll show you, try this game out, try that game out. So it's been. I like Settlers of Catan. That was a game I played a lot of. I played a lot of that online actually too. I used to play checkers all the time. So back when I was a teenager, I would play on the Yahoo Checkers, and I would try to get to the top of the ladder on there. And there was a lot of politics involved in this ladder experience because you had to know certain people. But I started a crew. I'd play the 1/0 games. It's 1 minute. You get 1 minute to play, and you get no more at a time. And I pretty much played that for like a year or two straight, all day long, checkers. And
that's funny. I have a similar story with Connect 4 on Facebook.
Oh, really?
There used to be ranked Connect 4 on Facebook, and I like started playing it casually, and then really wanted to get first on ladder, and so just memorized like it's a solved game. Obviously.
Oh yeah. I've actually played a lot of Connect 4 this year and last year. There's a place down here that has a real life Connect 4, and it's called Gold Spike in downtown, and they have it on the wall and a bunch of other games there. So I go there and I fuck people. I just beat people up pretty bad, and some people gamble there too, and they literally cannot beat you basically if you know how to play the game. So
yeah, Gold Spike. I get kicked out of Gold Spike every time.
For what?
Well, not even kicked out. They just don't let me in. I'm never dressed well enough for them, apparently. I always come with like sweatpants or sweatshirt from the casino, and they never let me in.
Damn.
I've tried going like 3 times, and I always forget that they have a dress code, and I always just get told to go away at the door. It's been really brutal.
Yeah, you definitely need to. I mean, bring the Yale shirt there, the glasses, the jeans, man. It's pretty simple, man. But they got a lot of cool because they have like the beanbags outside. They got the real life chess. They have a bigger beanbag version. They have the foosball game and the darts in there. I mean, they got a bunch of games. I don't know. I just like going there and playing the games. I mean, I don't know. It's like a fun. I love the games too, so it's like a fun place to go and get drink and dance and stuff like that. So.
I've only heard good things, and people are always like, "You should go here all the time." And then every time I've tried to go, I just forget about this stupid dress code and then lose interest for a while.
Yeah, I agree. Connect 4 is a solved game. I agree, but that doesn't mean people don't want to play against you guys, okay? And it's still a fun game to play. It's just, I agree.
Oh no, you can look up the solution online, and it's not that hard to memorize. There was just something for some dumb reason to 14-year-old me. It was fun to try to get first on some online ranking system.
Did you get first on the in the rankings or what?
I think I got to like sixth.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult because I don't remember exactly the methodology when both players just always win, like how they exactly handle it. When it's honestly been so long that I think it's a draw if you go second against a perfect player, but I might even be wrong about that. I haven't played in 10 years.
Yeah.
But whatever the methodology was, I don't remember how there was like a way to pass the other people who were also playing perfectly.
Plus, they might have been using bots. I don't know, man. There used to be bots back in the day. You know, guys, I've been on the crusade against bots too, but yeah, there's this program called Checkerboard. So people would use bots against you, and it would instantly move. So you'd be battling against the bots, trying to have who had the faster connection, and then like at the end when you're in the corner going back and forth. So it was intense, man. I don't know. I used to love checkers so much. I love that game, man.
Is checkers a solved game? I don't know.
They have solvers for it. I'm pretty sure it is a solved game, but I mean, I think it's pretty challenging to actually emulate it in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if it's not solved, that AlphaZero would solve it in like 5 minutes.
Yes,
but
I think so.
I just don't know if I assume it's solved.
I don't think it can be bothered. It's busy solving more complicated games than checkers right now. So yeah, it can't be bothered to fuck around with checkers. What is it? I don't know what's going after next. It went after Go. I don't know what the next game it's on to, but
I'm curious if they ever use DeepMind for incomplete information games, because I feel like if they turned it to poker, they're just gonna solve like any form of poker they plug in. But as of now, like the algorithm is only designed for complete information games, so that's all they've played around with. They've only solved games with like open board state, and I know that it's much more complicated to solve poker games than it is to solve those types of games. I think because of the deception factor is very tricky.
Didn't the one that played the guy's heads up
Liberatus
Liberatus that it didn't solve it, but it still beat the guys.
Right. It's a hell of a lot better than humans, but I assume if DeepMind wrote a program, it would crush Liberatus. That would be my assumption. And also, like, there are more complicated games than Heads Up No Limit Hold'em that exist within the poker realm. I think a game like, I don't know, a game like a split pot game, especially a game like, let's say, Archie, 5-card draw Archie, would be much more complicated to solve.
I've never heard of this game in my life. 5-card Archie. If you've heard of this game in the chat, please tell me. How does this game work? What is it? Was it like 5-card draw? But what's the?
So it's 5-card draw, triple draw, and it's a high-low split game, and you need to either to qualify for the low, you need an 8 low or better. Aces count as the low card, so it's like stud 8 rankings.
Okay.
So best low is ace 2 3 4 5, and the worst low is 8 7 6 5 4. And then to qualify for the high, you need a pair of 6s or better. And you need to qualify, or else if the other person qualifies and you don't, they scoop you. And then if you both qualify for the same half, the person with the better hand wins. But if you both qualify for different halves, you chop the pot. It's a tough game. There's a lot going on.
Who's in, guys? Who's in? I know a lot of you guys are out there are in. Let's make this happen, man. I don't know.
It's actually a great action game, like full ring. At least until people have played it a ton and tighten up. It's there. Every hand looks playable. So people, when we first started playing, there's a lot of like 5- and 6-way action pots.
In stud, or in this
no,
game?
This is 5-card draw. So you have 5 cards face down, and you get 3 chances to draw to your hand, and you're trying to make either an 8 low or better or a pair of 6s or better, but you also need to have the best out of everyone who qualifies for your half.
The Poker Traveler says, does this guy play Congress or Pineapple? Much simpler than Archie.
Pineapple as in Chinese pineapple, or pineapple as in discarding cards from your hand and then playing a flop game pineapple?
I want to play the second one personally, but I don't want to.
That's part of
I'd always like to play some sort of Pot Omaha version of that where you could potentially discard something and then get a new card or get 2 cards or 1 card or something like that.
I mean, have you heard of Dramaha?
I've people in the chat have just talked about this, but I don't think I've played it. I have not played it before. No. How does that work?
You draw to your hand and then you play the best hand within your PLO hand, like just outright showdown in your PLO hand, and then you also have a board, and then it's a split pot game. So the best hat hand within your hand, as well as the best hand playing from your hand and the board using Omaha rules, each get half of the pot.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy ones. Like Double Board Omaha High is another game that I think
I've heard about that. That sounds intense.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun Omaha variants making their way around.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I think I saw the other day Brian Rass posted something about the big bet mix game on Bobby's room there. The bunch of the games they're playing. It's a lot of games in there. So is that sort of like, is that something that you maybe look forward to at one point in time in your career, being a regular in those games and doing battle with those guys on a consistent basis?
I mean, I've played twice, but it's problematic because those guys play the game a lot. And so you don't really get any other chance to play those games outside of in that game. And so if those guys play a lot and you only play infrequently, they just over time have developed such a better understanding of like all the dynamics that come up in each game that I get more and more nervous to hop in even when the game is very good as time goes on. So
do you think you could ever get to that point where you're a regular in that game on a consistent basis, or do you feel like to kind of grind through to that point to become at that point it would be that hard, or what do you think?
There was briefly a time period at the end of last summer where a 10% version of that game ran. So all the same games except 10% the stakes. So instead of a 100K minimum buy, it was a 10K minimum buy. Mm-hmm. And, instead of 300, 600 being the PLO stakes, it was 30, 60, for example. And I did not stick around because that happened after the main event to play, but that would be what I would want to do before like trying to play that game daily just to get hands in. It's just so unfair to yourself to try to play people who have just been playing, hundreds, if not thousands of hours of the game over the course of a few years, and you just haven't played it all. Mm-hmm. And sure, like maybe at some reasonable stakes that might be fun, but 100,000 minimum buy to a big bet game is pretty pricey in terms of if you think you're putting yourself in a bad spot.
I feel like you could get a regular game like that going almost every day during the series if you put it out there and said, hey, like I want to play this sort of mixed game. We're going to play at this stake, though. I feel like there'd be other people who'd be interested in playing at that stake in that sort of setting, too.
There was, I didn't stick around to play it, but it seemed like the games were full and there was a pretty strong amount of interest to play the 10% version.
Yeah.
So there are people willing to gamble it up with games they haven't played a lot, as long as like the stakes are reasonable usually.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of people that see the Bobby's Room game and they're like, well, I'd like to play there, but obviously I can't. So it's that's 100,000 in buy-in. But when you're like, oh wait, that 10K, like I feel like that would be would that run at Bellagio or was that running at Aria?
It's run at
both.
I think it's run at both. I've only played it at Aria, but I'm pretty sure it runs at both. But I'm just not an expert on. I'm only there during the World Series, and I really only play 5 to 10 sessions a year in there. So I just don't know.
I don't know, man. Every time I talk to the mixed game guys, I want to play it more, and especially after playing that game the other night, I was like, man, this is kind of fun. I don't know. It's different. It's fun. It's different.
It's something where you actually have to think in ways you haven't had to think in so long because you've just. How many hands of PLO have you played? 3 million, 2 million?
Like 5 to 6 million at this point in time.
Yeah. Like, what are you thinking about anymore? Like, you shouldn't really be even learning anything anymore unless you're using active studying tools. But just from playing, like, you should just be autopiloting at this point, basically, and that's just not very engaging or fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of just like keep continuous learning of fundamentals as I break them continuously, and I keep learning. Okay, just kind of like a big circle of things. So. That's kind of fun. And now it's battling against the bots online. So
I think with games like those that you've played those many hands, again we go back to the old statement. The main battle is keeping discipline over yourself. Mm-hmm. else. But again, that's not super engaging or super fun. That's just your own little battle that you have to go on to stop yourself from getting bored and start opening shit that you're not supposed to, or 3-betting shit you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But that exists in the other games too. Plus, you get to think about new and exciting spots, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I've been thinking about playing more No Limit, because I used to play No Limit back in the day for a few years and played a few million hands of that and switched to PLO. But at least when I go back there, I'm like, fuck, I don't know what to do here. So it's been kind of fun to at least think about those things. And as you mentioned with PLO, I feel like for me when I play, it's just mainly a battle against myself. Like if I can battle my own discipline, then I'll be able to win. But if I don't, then I'm gonna lose. And it's like,
right?
I don't know. Not necessarily that fun here. So I see my girl Lisa Hoffman in the chat, the only woman to ever call up to Live with the Bike. She says, "I forgot how much I hate Mondays, Lisa. Thank you very much. I forgot how much I hate seeing you pop up on my Instagram feed as well. So I do want to give you a big shout out, Lisa. Much love to you. Volcommerce in there. Love me some Pop Lemon Omaha. VGCC, yo puppy. What's up, brother? Let's take a couple questions from the chat, guys, and then we are gonna wrap up this Monday night show. Dan, are you playing this week? You playing this Friday? What's happening this Friday?
Yeah, I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm flying back to LA, so I should be there for the show.
Are you going to punish Art? This guy's been winning too much damn money. Are we going to punish him, Dan?
I try. I feel like I win every hand we play, and yet he still just wins 200,000 every week. So I'm doing my best. You got to talk to the other guys on the show.
I got to talk to Garrett about this. It sounds like me and Garrett need to sit down and have a discussion about this because...
Yeah. I'm fucking 3-betting him on the river with nothing. What do you want from me? Win the pots.
Listen, we need you to bust him for at least 100K. Oh, come on, he's been winning too much money. He's been taking it down. Who else has been the big winner? Who's been the big winner on the show lately, guys? Who on there? I think Double A. I think Double A won last Friday, a little bit of money. And Garrett's having these crazy swings. Art's been crushing the Wolf. I'm not sure how the Wolf's been doing on there. Yeah,
the Wolf.
The Wolf. Nick.
Nick. The Wolf.
And the Wolf. What do you call? We call him Nick.
Yeah, I have not heard the Wolf before.
Oh man, he wears this sick hat. It says the Wolf on it. I'm like, man, I'm not calling you anything else but the Wolf, buddy. Like it's.
I like that. That's good. Yeah. Nick keeps the last month. Nick keeps burying himself the first 4 hours and then crushing everyone the last 2 and getting even. He's been I texted him this week. I told him he has to try winning at the start. It's a better strategy. So. I think he's gotten out every single week, but he keeps putting himself into to rough spots early. So it's always it feels better to go that direction than the other direction to break even. At least it feels much miserable if you start up 40,000 and then finish breaking even.
No, 135. I don't know why this is either. That is. I don't know why that is. I don't know why
it's not close. The feeling is so different. Like going from minus 40 to even versus plus 40 to even is just. The difference between feeling like you won the lottery and feeling like you want to go dig a grave for yourself after the session.
Seriously. Like, I mean, when you chase losses, you're like feeling like you're the king, but when you are up money and you get back to even, you're like, what the, you literally like, what the hell just happened, man? Yeah, that's so true. I don't know why that is. I know there's got to be some I think like the scientific experts, I should put this on Twitter because I actually want to know from the scientific experts, there's got to be like something this is called.
Yeah, I mean, you're always, I don't know what the term is, but it makes a ton of sense, right? You're just relative to where you've been. I mean, I've been in games all the time where, on the East Coast, it's called buried peak, meaning that like you're stuck from your peak, even though like you're still winning. So you were winning like 60,000, but now you're only winning 20,000. You're buried peak, and people will just moan and complain about how buried peak they are. While other people there are still getting buried, but are in a better mood because they're like on the uptick. It's everyone's struggles with rationalizing this shit.
Yeah, I guess it's a very big. I mean, the way I fixed that play online was I just stopped looking at my results. And when you're playing a lot of tables, it can kind of blend together. When you're playing not a lot of tables, if you're up money usually or not, unless you go through a couple of big hands a couple different ways, and you can really tell from the stack sizes you have. And I think at live poker, you always usually know how much you're in for. So sometimes you might have to count the chips and go through them and stuff like that. But I feel like you always have a pretty good idea if you're up or if you're down when you're playing live poker. What do you think?
Yeah, no, you always do. And you got to teach me how to do that online because I hit the refresh button on Poker Tracker like every 5 minutes, no matter what.
Yeah, I did that forever. And then one time I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not looking. And it coincided with some of my best results in a time. I'm like, oh, okay, fuck that. I'm not. So I stopped looking. And now when I when I've noticed I do it again, that's when, I mean, it's so, I don't understand. Like every time you refresh, it's like a new thing in your mind, and it's like a new positive or negative feeling. It's like, oh, fuck, I was up 2 binds and now I'm down 1. It's like, I shouldn't have made, it's like you go through those things so often in the session, and it's just,
Yeah, it's tough to separate out for sure. And everyone is varying degrees of good or bad at it.
Oh, yeah. They say Phillock calls this upstuck. I've definitely heard that. Dr. Space said it's called prospect theory. I have not heard that before. I need to look that up. I will look up prospect theory. But yeah, let me find this other question here. About poker advice. No, where is it at? No, I can't find the question. I can. It was something about the best advice you'd give someone out there that's trying to become a winning player or something like that.
Trying to become a winning player?
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember the exact question though. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think the number one key is usually if you're trying and you find good games, you're gonna be able to win. So like honest self-evaluation about your discipline as well as game selection are like the two most important things for starting out. You need to be very honest with yourself about, it's not theoretical mistakes that you're making that you don't know better about, but it's you doing dumb shit that you do know better about. Like being honest with when you're doing that stuff and figuring out a way to get rid of it. And then figuring out a way to not play people that you know are better than you. That's like the two keys to starting out. Because if you're playing low stakes, you can always find tables where people are not trying to win, and the only thing you need to do is have control over yourself and be trying your best. That's it. And people struggle with that, even as simple as that is.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. God damn. Yes, they do. Matt B says that was my question, Joey. You got it right. All right, guys, we'll find one more question, and then where can people follow you, Dan? So you have Twitter. Are you on the Instagram streets yet, or where do you hang out at? Where people?
No, I have no idea what Instagram is. I have a Twitter, so that works. I'm not super active on it, but yeah, you're welcome to follow. It's like Dan_Zack, I think, and that's
just
definitely.
Don't find out what Instagram is. It ain't no good come out of Instagram. I'm telling you right now.
It doesn't make any sense to me why there would be a social media platform for just pictures. It seems like all the other ones already did that, but everyone tells me
I don't ever want you to tell me the answer to that question. I want you to always wonder that and never find out the answer. Okay, I'm telling you, there's literally no good that'll come out. Like there's no positive that comes out from that you ever figured out the answer to that question. I wish. Yeah, I think that was the best thing when I was, maybe I need to do that now to be honest with you in my life, but when I'm super focused in, I'm not worrying about no Twitter, no fucking Insta. I wasn't even on Instagram for years. I barely used Facebook. I was playing poker every day, talking poker, watching poker, going over poker, studying poker. And then when you start letting this other things into your life, it's like your energy is a little bit spread out there, a little spread out there, a little here, a little there. And I mean, it just can snowball pretty quickly. And
that's another good tilt indicator, by the way, is like if I start checking like all my Twitter and Facebook shit on my phone at the table, I usually know that I'm no longer playing my best or focused. It's so toxic, and it's just like it eats at your mind all the time. I'm not a huge fan of any of this stuff, but it's out.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. If you are playing and you do notice that you're going on your phone a bunch, and I mean that one means you're probably not focused, but yeah, I think that is probably a pretty good indicator that you're not playing your best game. And I think then it's like a matter of, okay, I got to stop doing this. I mean, the best people that are disciplined can do it, but I'm sure a lot of people can't. First of all, they can't identify they're doing it, and then when they do, they can't stop themselves from doing it. So it's like a double whammy there in a lot of ways for people.
Yeah, it's so hard. I've made some weird bets at the table, like non-chip shuffling bets versus people or non-phone bets with people, and it is shockingly hard when these are just so habited and ingrained. Mm-hmm. So like I've had bets where like the first person to either shuffle their chips or check their phone just loses, whatever the amount is. Jesus. And it's you catch yourself like 50 times just subconsciously slipping back into it. Jesus. It's really tough.
I will make that bet with anyone ever. Please offer me the bet, anyone, please. I want to make that bet because Yeah, I mean, it's just so like it's just subconsciously too. You don't even mean to. You pick up your phone and you're like, you're on the phone, and then you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden, fucking 10 minutes went by, 15 minutes, and you didn't even know what happened. You're like, oh, like it's so easy, and then it kind of can happen again. It happens again, and it's a cumulative effect. I think it's hurting me a lot in my life right now, just because like I'm not sure like what the main focus is. So I'm just on the phone I'm just sitting there on the phone, and all of a sudden like hour and a half goes by, and you're like, what did I fucking do the last hour and a half here? And it's like you took in some information and you might have been interested in the information, but it's like, did that information actually help you learn or get to any point that you're trying to get to?
Have you ever used one of the phone use trackers?
I'm scared. No, I haven't. I've used a browser one, but I have not used a mobile one. No.
Yeah, these things tell you how often, like how many hours you've had your phone unlocked and open, and like your usage by app in time, and it is chilling to look at, like truly chilling. And I think it's made me better and more conscious about how much I do it and trying to cut down on it. But when you first look at the results, like you just put it on your phone and you forget about it for a week and then check it, it is terrifying how much time a lot of people are spending on this.
Dan, is there a way to cheat this? Do you think there's a way to cheat this system on there?
I don't know, man. Delete social media, but then it's tough because like that's how you stay in communication with people.
Right. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to make a prop bet, and I'm going to get the app that tracks my usage, and I cannot, like, I can't spend a certain amount of time on my phone. It'll track. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be able to cheat it. I don't want to be able to nothing be on it. But I want to make a bet that I can only use my phone like a certain, like an hour max a day or something like that, because that
if I could an hour, I would like to wager any amount you want. You can't do that for a significant period of time. It's so hard. What do you think like is a normal usage time on the phone?
Oh, I've just heard a podcast about this. They said it was 4 hours, and I said, no, fuck, that's a lot. I think it's probably like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. Maybe even less or more. Probably 4.
Yeah, I would guess like you're averaging more than 4 if I had to guess. It's the time adds up in these little and long amounts. An hour is, I mean, it sounds like a great goal, and I've tried to do it. I've spent weeks trying to get under an hour, and I like have really struggled to do it. But yeah, if you wanted to make a bet where you had to keep like under an average of an hour for like a month, I just don't believe it. But it would be a great goal, and at least something to track and try to see how far you can get it down.
Yeah, I think this is actually a real. I'm gonna do something like this, whether it's but yeah, an hour. I mean, I guess if you're texting and you're talking to people, then that obviously can add up. But you can use Telegram on the web for that too. But yeah, people say we need me on Twitter. I agree. Twitter has been doing pretty well because I've been active on Twitter. That's the positive side of it. The negative side is that I spend too much goddamn time on my phone and on Twitter. And it's like the Twitter's. Like, I feel like there's some sort of like poison they put in this thing, Dan. And when you go there and you go through it again, and it's like, I don't know, man. It just seems like it's so super addicting. Something addicting about the phone. I mean, it's
the whole thing is toxic. Yeah. It just something about it brings out this various things out of people, like both vicious things out of people and just like incessant curiosity and just inability to stop scrolling. There's just so much, and it's so hard for people to put it down. Yeah, I don't know.
It really is, man. I'm actually, guys, you guys need to hold me to this. By next week, I need to have some sort of bet, whether it's like a self bet, I have to give away something, or I mean, I might give away $10,000. I don't know, but I got to do something where that I have to like show my usage, because I need to cut. That's like my biggest thing. I need to cut this out. Bam! If I can cut this out, it's going to be so much more better for my life. So that's going to be. Feldman says, ask Dan about the bet he offered to unlock his combination lock. What's that mean?
Oh, so I had a combo lock. Actually, I have it right next to me. Hold on. I think it's in here. Yeah. So I have a lock like this. Oh, sorry, the camera's way down here. So it's like a 4-digit combination lock.
Okay.
And I was on this show, and I had it, and someone asked me why I had it, and we just got into a random discussion. And we determined that people wanted to guess what the combination was, because I said I didn't even know what the combination was. And I decided to offer people odds to try to open it. And so I started laying, I think AJ was taking half of it. So me and AJ together were laying 4,000 to 1 on guessing a single combination. So people were posting like $5 to win 20,000 and then just guessing a number, trying to open it. And no one won on stream. And then we were playing 200, 400 at Commerce. And someone at the table said, here, hand that to me. I'll open it. And so I handed it to him. And like 3 seconds later, my lock was open. So that was pretty strong. So I'm glad we never let anyone touch it, because apparently people are very good at opening these things.
The fuck? Okay. So the guy opened it in 3 seconds. That was it?
It was really smart of him. So he heard me say that, like, I knew the combination used to be 0000, and I was playing around with it a bunch one day, and then it just stopped opening to that number. And somehow he realized that that meant that I must have slightly, like, just had it open and, like, slightly changed the locked-in combination, and then closed it again, resetting the combination. So he just started trying one-offs or two-offs from the original combo, and it turned out the combination was just 3. So it was 0003 was the combination. And so he had it open.
Smart guy. I like this guy.
Within a few seconds. And he even said, I'm not going to guess because I don't want to take your money. He was like, I'm probably going to have like a 1 in 10 chance of guessing it. And I didn't believe him, but then I handed him the lock and he just opened it. So that was pretty strong. That could have worked out very, very badly.
Could have been very badly. Yeah, that would have been very bad. So,
but I think we booked like 20 or 30 bets before that happened. So that was fun sweats each time for everyone.
Oh man. All right, guys, I'm enjoying this conversation very much. Dan, appreciate you coming on, buddy. Very nice chatting with you, my friend. I figured I'd get along with you very well, and my suspicions have been very confirmed. So I think everyone on here that was watching definitely enjoyed having you on. If you guys want to follow Dan, check him out on Twitter, Dan2_ and Zack, and he'll be back playing this Friday. Coming back from New Jersey, going to LA. You say you come back in a couple days or what?
Yeah, I'm flying in 8 hours, or
nice.
Yeah, something like 8 hours.
Wait, that's not nice at all. Oh, it's 10:30 there. Okay, 5:30.
Yeah.
Oh,
6 a.m. flight.
Oh my God, that sounds awful. Fuck. Okay, never mind. That sounds bad. All right. Well, it might not be most GTO when it comes to booking his flights, unless your sleep schedule is that time. Then this is actually a really good.
Right. That's when I've been going to bed.
Okay.
So I'm just asleep on the plane.
Dare I say, GTO. Definitely a polar opposite from last week. I completely agree with you guys. I would agree. That's true. Guys, much love everybody in the chat. Much love everybody who commented. We'll be back next week. Tune in for Live at the Bike all this week at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And that's it. Peace out, everybody. Adios. Stan, much love.
Thanks.